You guys already know me. I feel silly introducing myself. I'm Danielle. Here today we're going to talk about movement as medicine for body, mind, and soul. And we'll just start off by kind of talking about some of these statements. Raise your hand if you've ever heard, running is bad for your knees. Or deadlifting is a fast track to a bad back. Yep. What if I told you that done right, these very movements might be a key to less pain, more energy, and even more years in your life? So you guys already know me a little bit from class, but I'm Danielle, and here's why I care about movement as medicine, body, mind, and soul. My business is Danielle's Bells. I own my own business. As someone who works for themselves, I get to give myself my own title, and my title is Evolution Ambassador. I'm a certified personal trainer through the National Academy of Sports Medicine, and I'm a kettlebell coach, university level 2 coach. Those are pretty boring, but those are just different certifications that I've earned. More importantly on this topic, I'm tied to it a little bit closer because doctors told my parents I would be in a wheelchair by the age of 5. I was 3 years old when I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in every moving joint in my body. And they told my parents to expect that by the age of 5 I would be in a wheelchair. Fortunately, that never came to be, thanks to movement and chemical medicine. I've trained desk workers who have chronic pain and athletes who are recovering from surgery. And I've personally experienced bone replacement and recovery. Most of you know that just last May, I got a new hip. Thanks to all of the exercise that I did to grow the muscles around that joint, my recovery period was quite minimal, and I got back to moving heavy weights quickly. So that's why I care about the topic of movement as medicine. So in our time together today, we're going to cover just a few basic points. We're going to debunk some of the movement myths about the relationship between movement form, dosage. I'm going to use that terminology, dosage, just like you would with medicine. The dosage, the amount of exercise that you're doing, movement, and injuries. We're going to talk about the physical benefits of, what happens to a body that stays in motion. And then we'll also talk about mental benefits of movement. Movement makes for more than just a strong body. We'll talk about the impacts on your mind in the way that you kind of maneuver through the world, and how movement feeds the soul. That regular movement has emotional and spiritual benefits that help us align with our purpose. Those of you who are sitting further back, are you able to read the text on this? I don't think it gets a whole lot smaller than that, so we should be okay. So let's jump right in and we'll look at the myths. You guys knew I had to work my kettlebells into this somehow because, I'm kind of addicted. Let's clear this up. So we talked right away, running ruins your knees. These statements, they're common, but this doesn't mean that they're true. If you train smart, studies show that runners actually have fewer knee injuries and issues than people who are sedentary, because the joints are meant to move. They need circulation and load in order to stay healthy. And then deadlifts are dangerous. Well, only if your form is. Deadlifts, when coached correctly, like we do in our classes here, like I do with my one-on-one clients, they can be one of the most functional and protective exercises for your back and posture. We deadlift every day when we're picking up the groceries off the ground, when we're picking up the dog, when we're, moving furniture that we don't want to move, but it has to be done. The real danger isn't in the movement, it's in poor movement or not moving at all. So let's jump in to movement and the body. What does that do for your body, starting with pain reduction? When you strengthen your muscles around your joints, you're not just getting stronger, you're redistributing stress. That means less wear and tear and more resilience. Muscles around a joint help absorb and distribute the forces acting on the joint during the movement. So think about just walking. Your ankles, your toes, there's joints there's tons of joints between your toes and your ankles, your knees, your hips, everything that is getting an impact with each step. The muscles surrounding each one of those joints are helping to absorb some of the load. So they're distributing the force and acting along with the joints during the movement. If the muscles are strong, they can effectively take some of the pressure off the joint itself, reducing stress and strain. It also reduces wear and tear by distributing stress more evenly. Strengthening muscles can help prevent excessive wear and tear on the joints, cartilage, and other issues. Have any of you ever had a pain in your knee? So what happens if you ignore that pain for a while? The limp gets worse, you get stiff. You start kind of accommodating for where that pain is. I know I was starting to with my hip, which was why I decided it was time to have the surgery. My pain started in one location, but I was trying to accommodate that pain, and it was changing the way that I would walk and move, and I was putting more strain on the knee. So we want to make sure that we are strengthening all of the surrounding muscles so that we're not creating excessive pain on any specific joints. Strong muscles also improve the joint's ability to withstand the stress and pressure, making us more resistant to future injury and pain. It has broader benefits like bone density, improved bone density, better balance, and enhanced overall fitness. We talked about some of those during the last session that I talked with some of you about, our Fight Like a Girl session. A lot of that tying in the building of muscle mass to how that impacts our bone density as well. So those are very closely related, and regardless of gender, those are things that we need to be thoughtful of in terms of aging, because naturally bone mass and muscle mass do decrease. So if we don't fight to build, not just maintain, but also build muscle mass, we're going to also lose bone mass. If you want to live longer, a recent study showed that just 11 minutes of moderate movement a day can reduce the risk of early death by 23%. So the study itself, forgive me, I'm going to use some notes here so I give you the right information. It's from the British Journal of Sports Medicine, analyzed data from nearly 200 studies involving over 30 million participants. They found that individuals who engaged in 75 minutes of moderate physical activity per week, which breaks down to 11 minutes daily, had a significantly lower risk of premature death compared to those who were sedentary. 11 minutes. That's less than half of a sitcom. That's less than half of the evening news. All right? Besides reducing the risk of early death, the study also showed that moderate physical activity can help prevent heart disease, stroke, and certain cancers. So it's not just longevity, it's not just the length of life, but quality of life and increased health that they found in this study. They emphasized that it was small changes, like replacing 11 minutes of sedentary sitting with movement. How hard is it to stand up and move while you're watching the show? Not too bad, right? Not too bad. No one says you have to go out for a run. No one says you have to go to the gym. It can be just mindful movement for 10, 11 minutes a day. Now, it did say that there was a sweet spot for longevity. While the 11 minutes a day does reduce the risk by 23%, it did say that brisk walking for 35 minutes per day may offer the greatest statistical improvement in lifespan. So, all right, that's a little bit longer than a sitcom, but it will only get you through the opening credits of the next show. It's not too much more than that. A little bit, yeah, exactly, exactly. So it's 35 minutes of movement. Those of you who are coming to class are getting, 45, 50 minutes of movement when we're going through a class together. So you're going beyond that sweet spot. But it's not just about quantity. Quality over quantity. More isn't always better. It's not about beating your body into submission. That may have been fun when we were in our 20s. It wasn't even fun then. It really wasn't. But those were the crazy things we did in our 20s. We didn't fuel right. We exercised. We went out. We partied. We didn't sleep right. That's a big piece too. We got to make sure that you get the rest. In terms of healthy lifestyle, I'm always going to encourage movement. I'm a certified trainer. I love helping people discover their strength. But you know what? Top priority is rest and recovery. Without quality sleep, the rest doesn't work. Rest and recovery, proper nutrition and fueling, then movement, okay? But really, it's not about that beating yourself into submission. It's about learning how to move well. That's what creates energy instead of exhaustion. True well-being comes from not just pushing the body to its limits, but from understanding and respecting your natural rhythms and limitations. This approach prioritizes energy creation over depletion. And when you develop efficient, sustainable movement patterns that are tailored to your individual needs and abilities, you get to optimize movement, and you can experience sustained energy levels rather than fatigue and exhaustion. When you do go to a class, I know those of you here get to participate in some of the classes, whether it's here or at other centers or gyms. Are those days where you feel more wiped out later on? Or are they usually days where you kind of walk out feeling like, all right, I did something good, and it kind of propels you to keep going in another direction? Yeah. In most cases, it takes more energy to show up for the exercise, to talk yourself into going out and doing it, then it depletes afterwards. I used to be what I called part of the 5:30 club. I used to go to the JCC when they would open at 5:30 in the morning. And there were about 7 or 8 of us who would go stand in line together in the dark at 5:30 in the morning, waiting for, a rope drop like you would if you were going to a nightclub, for them to open the door and let us in. And 5:30 in the morning is really early in January when it's 12 degrees outside and it's dark. It's really early. And sometimes my bed feels so warm. But it's discipline that got us there. It wasn't always motivation, it's discipline. And you get used to seeing those same people who will give you bloody hell if you weren't in line outside. There were a few times where I would roll in on 2 wheels, walk in the door at 5:35 to start in, and Danielle, where were you? How come you weren't outside with us? You get into that zone of people. It's chalking yourself into it. It's keeping yourself determined and focused on the movement, because you know you're going to feel better afterwards. You know it's going to give you more energy. And that was back before I was a trainer. That was back when I had, we'll call it 9 to 5, but it was more than that, a 9 to 5 marketing job. So I would go do that for an hour and a half, come back home, take a shower, get my kids to school, and get off to work. Honestly, it changed everything in my life in terms of having the energy for the rest of my day. Which kind of gets us nicely into movement and the mind, because it's not just the mind set to move, but the benefits that come from movement. Movement boosts brain function. Every time you intentionally move your body, I've got to read this so I say this the right way. Your body releases a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. We're just going to call it BDNF. That's what they call it. That's the term that I see in most of my textbooks is BDNF. And you can think of it as miracle grow for your brain. More focus, sharper memory, better creativity. Those are all the symptoms that come from the production of BDNF. This protein is crucial for brain health. It promotes the growth of new neurons, strengthening existing connections, which helps with learning and memory. So, direct connection to intentional movement and improved learning and memory skills. When you engage in physical exercise, your body releases that BDNF into the bloodstream and it stimulates brain activity and enhances its function. Higher levels of BDNF linked to improved focus, memory, creativity, and reduced risk of cognitive decline associated with aging. Various forms of exercises, including activity like running or swimming, can significantly increase BDNF. So those aerobic activities tend to create a higher boost in the BDNF than, say, one of my favorite things, just strength training. So that walking, that steady movement, yoga, those types of things do have a big impact on the creation of the BDNF protein. So there you go, we got a little scientific. Let's talk about mood too. At different times, all of us struggle with stress. All of us struggle with some levels of anxiety, and just having tangled up thoughts and emotions. A 20-minute walk can lower cortisol and boost serotonin. Have you heard of cortisol before? Raise your hand if you've heard of cortisol. It's a stress hormone. Our body naturally creates it. How about serotonin? Very closely linked to sleeping. Let's talk about this a little bit more. Many people find that using large muscle groups in a rhythmic, repetitive fashion works best in terms of leveling out cortisol and serotonin levels. Again, back to walking, running, swimming, yoga, dancing, something with kind of constant, steady movement. It lowers that cortisol, which is the body's main stress hormone. A 20-minute walk significantly lowers cortisol. Walking also stimulates the release of endorphins. We've heard this before. Endorphins are the happy feelings, those natural mood lifters, and that leads to more positive and relaxed outlook. Now, serotonin is that neurotransmitter that regulates mood and sleep. That's also increased by that steady state intentional movement, walking, running, swimming, dancing. And if nothing else, it's an opportunity to clear the mind. Whether you're walking alone and have the time to think, or you're walking with somebody else, or maybe you're having a conversation, kind of gives you that clarity time. Before I got into strength training, I used to run. I've competed. I hate to say competed. I wasn't racing against anybody but myself. But I've completed 3 half marathons. And I would use my training time and say, this mile I'll think about this. And then I'm done thinking about it. So maybe I was stressed about something that was going on with one of my kids. All right, this mile I'm going to think about Matt and the trouble he got in at school the other day. And then when I get to the next mile, I'm not thinking about it anymore. I'm done. I'm wiping that out of my head. Matt really wasn't a troublemaker in school, but yeah, sometimes. I'll save that story for another time. Or I would use it to think about something great, about, my sister-in-law was about to have a baby and I wanted to just spend that mile praying for her to have a really safe delivery and excited to meet the baby. And, but whatever it was, I would allow myself so much of the distance to think about one topic and then force myself to move on. And it just gave me space to hold, to be in those thoughts, and then to say, all right, I'm done, I'm gonna release it. So it wasn't overwhelming and staying in my stress for any longer than it needed to be. Speaking of running, did any of you watch any part of the marathon? I work with a woman at one of the gyms who's competed in it 5 times. And so for her, the marathon is a Super Bowl. We had all of the televisions in the gym on the marathon that day. And it was pretty exciting. I'm going to talk to you about a term that we use a lot in the gym called a PR. Anybody know what PR is? Personal record. All right? And sometimes that happens outside of the gym. Sometimes it's in terms of walking a further distance. If you've gone out for a walk with a family, maybe you're going for a further distance than you've ever walked before. It happens in the workplace. You know, if you're a salesperson, you hit your highest sales number, you got a new personal record. So this is not a terminology that's unique to exercise and movement, but it is a very common term in the gym. And what happens when you reach those personal records, you get a sense of physical and mental empowerment. As I said, sometimes it's a lifting more weight than you've done before in a specific exercise, or completing more repetitions than you've ever done before. With my kettlebell, when I went for my certification, we had to complete 100 snatches at a specified weight. A snatch is taking the weight from below you to above you. I had to complete 100 of those in 5 minutes at my testing weight, and your testing weight is designated by your body weight. So for me, it was a 30-pound bell that I had to bring up over my head 100 times in 5 minutes. At that point in time, I had never done it before. Now I do it weekly just to stay sharp with it, but that was a personal record for me. It can be going a further distance. It could be completing a distance in a faster period of time. Maybe you walk 2 miles a day and it usually takes you 30 minutes, but then you're having a really great day and it takes you 25 minutes. Wow, that's a great record. Reaching those PRs demonstrates progress, and it can be a significant source of motivation, especially for those who track your fitness journeys. And they signify that progress and a newfound sense of control over your body. So beyond that physical, those accomplishments also have a profound impact on your mental well-being. That sense of achievement and self-belief associated with reaching those personal records translates into increased confidence. I've trained women in the gym who are in abusive relationships. And as they gained confidence in their physical strength, some of them grew a voice that they never used before. Some of them grew a confidence in their ability to support themselves and remove themselves from really harmful situations. I've trained men in the gym who had skills but didn't have confidence to step forward for leadership roles at work. And there are so many factors that all go into it, but as they would reach these records in the gym of moving heavier weights or getting more reps or being faster, they started gaining confidence as well and using their voices to speak up about their own abilities. One guy I saw take over his whole department in the matter of a year and a half that we were working together. He should have been running it for years, but he just never had the confidence to speak up about his own skills and contributions. And I kept saying, look what you're doing. Look what you're doing. You're kicking butt here. Don't be afraid to speak up and tell people how great you're doing. We do applaud modesty, and nobody wants to hear anybody gloat, but it's not gloating when you've really hit an accomplishment. And sometimes those physical accomplishments teach us how to use our voice to speak up for the tough loads, the tough exercises that we can do with our own skills and mental abilities as well. What I'm trying to get here to is that these are powerful tools for mental and emotional well-being, promoting mindfulness, stress reduction, and self-awareness. Now's the part people don't talk about enough, the soul side of movement. There's something powerful about moving your body and feeling it respond. It's meditative, it's emotional, it's you reconnecting with your own purpose. I personally have cried at the end of a certain workout. Twice I have. Going back to the very beginning, I think I mentioned to those of you who are here, I was told I'd be in a wheelchair by the time I was 5. There were immediate times that my parents would put me in the swimming pool and have me exercise in that atmosphere because it was a great way for my muscles to move without having the body weight on my joints. And I was able to build up strength around the rheumatoid arthritis. However, my parents were discouraged from letting me do several activities that my friends were doing as a child. My friends went to gymnastics, I went to CCD. My friends went to soccer practice, I went to piano practice. And I still love playing piano. I'm really bad at it, but I still enjoy doing it. But there were all kinds of fun activities that all of my friends were out doing that I wasn't able to do. At 46 years old, when I went through several repetitions of being able to bench press 100 pounds, I cried. I cried in thanks to God because faith is a part of who I am. And to be able to say, wow, like this was something that I was never supposed to be able to do. And I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Wow, that was a big moment for me. Forgive me for being vulnerable in that state, but I also have connected with several clients who have had similar experiences in their movement. Mindful movement connects you to your soul. Paying close attention to the sensations of your body while moving can be a meditative practice. Somewhat hypnotic sometimes, whether it's swinging a kettlebell like my friend Lois here is doing, going for a walk, swimming. They allow you to connect with your body's signals and potentially release tension and navigate emotions. There's a whole sector in sports medicine of being trauma informed and helping people who have been through traumatic events use movement to overcome the pains that go along with those events, as well as working with people who have been fighting various addictions. So those mindful movements have huge soul connection benefits. There's also the emotional connection. Movement can be a powerful tool for emotional expression and release. Think about dance. Think about the way that people can demonstrate huge emotion on stage without a single word through the movements of their body. By moving, you may find yourself more attuned to your feelings and able to express them through your body. Exercise can lower symptoms of mild depression and anxiety. We talked about that with some of the chemicals that we were talking about in the mind section of this conversation. It improves your sleep, which is also often disturbed by stress, depression, and anxiety. All of these exercise benefits can ease stress levels and help you to manage your body and your life. And when you're in tune with your body and its movements, you may find a greater sense of connection to your purpose and direction in life. This can be particularly helpful when navigating challenging times. Movement has numerous physical benefits, including improved cardiovascular health, reduced inflammation, and better sleep. It also offers mental health benefits like reduced anxiety and depression. So, Just a couple practical takeaways that you can start today. Start small. 10 minutes, I'm lying, let's boost that up. It needs to be 11. I want you to have that 23% chance, a reduced chance of early death. So 11 minutes a day of intentional movement is enough to get started. It doesn't have to be a half hour. It doesn't have to be an hour. It doesn't have to be several hours. 11 minutes a day of intentional movement is enough to start feeling different, body, mind, and soul. Focus on movement quality. Think about posture, breath, and control. This is where I'm going to kind of go through a quick little fun demo here for those of you who can see my kettlebell. We talked about form. Many of you have been to my class and we do deadlifts. So with that weight, I'm having you come up straight and tall. And at the top of that deadlift, your shoulders are down out of your ears, your chest is out proud, your core is tight, your glutes are tight, your quads are tight. You can really feel your breath here. And as we're doing that, we inhale back down towards the ground and then push hard through the ground to come up with an exhale. And it's really connecting that movement and your breath and keeping the form in such a way that you're not creating the opportunity for injury, you're strengthening your body internally as well as your muscles and your joints in that movement pattern. So think about posture, breath, and control. Even when you're walking, think about striking the heel to the toe and having your shoulders back and looking straight ahead. Not so much the slumped over looking at the ground. The ground's not going anywhere. I've yet to find a trap door, maybe on a stage, but for the most part, they're not wandering out in the wilderness. So posture, breath, and control. Think about the quality of the movement. I'm gonna move this before I trip over it. Find something that feels good to you. Walks, dancing, lifting, yoga. If it lights you up, it's working. Don't stick yourself in something you don't enjoy. Your friends invite you to pickleball. If you love it, stay with it. Be careful. Be careful, please. A lot of pickleball injuries. But if you love it, stay with it and have a good time. Be thoughtful of your movements. If they're inviting you to pickleball and you decide, you know what, this is not my thing, don't. Move on. Find something else. Everybody's got their preference. And just right here at the center, there are 5 or 6 different types of classes that you could do on any given day of the week. They've got something, whether you want to do line dancing. I love watching the chair volleyball stuff. Everybody seems to have such a good time at. We have our strength class. I think there's Zumba classes. There's all kinds of opportunities for movement. Find what feels good to you. For me, it was the bells. They changed my life. I love what I am able to do with those. And it's more fun with friends. There's an accountability factor that comes when you've got a buddy to join you for your walk or for our class. That keeps you motivated to keep showing up, just like my 5:30 crew. What do you mean? It's 5:35, you're late. How come you're not here? The more friends you have with it. I've got a girlfriend out in Cleveland. We got certified together when we went through our kettlebell training. We work out together online every Monday. We've become best friends. We both have 3 kids. We both have husbands in accounting, finance kind of jobs that drive us a little bit crazy because our brains don't work that way. And we support and encourage each other, not just in our movement and in our coaching by sharing our cues and things that we would use with our clients, but also just as people. So I look forward to that time with her every week. And remember that you get to exercise. It's a privilege. There are so many people who would love to have the opportunity to be on their own 2 feet. If you know somebody in a wheelchair, I do. And I know he would give anything to be able to be moving the way that my friends and I move, the way that you can move. Exercise builds empowerment, health, and independence. And that's something that we need to be mindful of every day as we age. Because as soon as we stop using it, we start losing it. My father is 88. He's still on his own. And he loves doing bus trips with the local senior center. And he tells me every time, Danielle, I'm so surprised how many of them are on walkers, how many of them are on canes. They're younger than me. I said, Dad, don't stop moving. You gotta keep moving. You keep moving, you're gonna keep your time away from being with those walkers and those canes. So now, here's my challenge. You can do it. Some of you I've met with one-on-one and talked about what can you do? What's something small that you can modify? I hope you took something away today as something small you can modify to add intentional movement to your daily practice and feel the impact of movement as medicine for body, mind, and soul. Any questions? Please.
The kettlebell exercise, what muscle groups is it toning or using or what is
It depends on what exercise you do with it. I can do a full body workout with just that one bell. With regard to the deadlift, so from the deadlift, immediately you're working calves, you're working quads, you're working hamstrings and glutes. You're also working core. So with the push up is where you're getting all of that power from those leg muscles, and the standing tall at the top is getting strength from the core muscles. I can modify a step further from that, and I don't do this in our classes, but I do this in one-on-one sessions with people as old as 74. Kettlebell swings, and I have never done this in heels, so let's see how this part goes. With a kettlebell swing, it's gonna come back and straight up, and with that, again, you're even generating greater power through your legs and sustaining the strength through your core, but you're also engaging more upper body as well. I can take it overhead, bring it up, push it up overhead, and now I'm getting all of the benefits through my back, through all of the muscles in the upper back, upper chest, triceps, biceps, and I can even just do bicep work with it here. So there's lots of opportunities. I could do a whole class just on getting a full body workout with a single piece of iron. In fact, I do that regularly. So did that answer your question?
and then some.
And then some. Sorry, I get so excited. Again, I don't normally do it in heels and a dress, so that was a little fun too. Any other questions while we're all together? All right, well, I'm going to hang out afterwards if you have any one-on-one questions, and otherwise, I just encourage you to find a way that you feel energized moving, because the more you move, the more energy you're going to have, more independence you're going to have for a longer period of time. So thank you so much for coming out today. Hopefully the rain is done.